We had survived the village, but we were not yet finished with it. Our provisions had thinned more than I liked, and before we could afford the luxury of true rest, I would have to search these ruins once again. Yet food was not the only matter holding us here. 3 ogres still occupied one of the broken houses nearby. Creatures Astarion had turned from enemies into something less certain through nothing more than a quick tongue and a convincing lie. Whether they were friends, future enemies, or merely danger best left undisturbed, I had not yet decided. And before I made such a decision, I wanted to look at them more closely. There was also the book. I now carried the Dark Amethyst that had once been beyond my reach, and I had not forgotten the tome waiting below. Perhaps wisdom would have counseled distance, but curiosity has a voice of its own, and I had been listening to it for a very long time.
Tastes good, like bear. Dwarf sweet like honey. Must you? This inane chatter pains me.
The closer I came, the less I liked what I heard. They spoke of flesh as though discussing meat at a market stall, comparing one taste to another with a casualness I found revolting. And there, between them, lay the body of a tiefling. Whatever understanding Astarion had reached with these creatures, I found myself wondering whether such an understanding was worth keeping. Still, revulsion is not the same as wisdom. I moved closer, partly to study them, and partly because I wanted to understand the true scale of what stood before us. Only then did I fully appreciate their size. They did not simply stand taller than me. They seemed built from an excess of bone and muscle, each one large enough to make a man feel like a child who had wandered into the wrong house. Astarion was right about one thing. Should I decide that these ogres had become our enemies, surprise would be ours. They believed us to be friends, or at least useful acquaintances. That was an advantage, but not yet a decision. For the moment, I would watch, I would listen, and I would keep my hand away from my weapon.
No tastes good, like bear.
The notice appeared ordinary enough, a playbill for a tragedy in 4 parts. But the history behind its words was anything but ordinary. Netheril had once been the greatest realm of human wizardry, an empire whose mages raised cities into the sky and believed there was no height beyond their reach. Then came Karsus, an archmage who sought to take the power of Mistral herself, the goddess of magic. For one terrible moment, he succeeded. And in that moment, Netheril was lost. When magic failed, the great cities fell from the heavens. But Thultanthar had escaped that fate, withdrawing into the plane of shadow, where it remained for well over 1,000 years. In that long exile, Shar's influence took hold, and when the city finally returned to our world, it returned changed. And its story ended only recently, above the ancient elven city of Myth Draenor, where Thultanthar itself was brought down. 2 great cities, the weight of ages behind them, meeting in a single catastrophe. And now, Already, their history had become theater. I found that thought strangely unsettling. Empires rise. Gods are challenged. Cities fall from the sky. And before the dust has settled, someone is selling tickets. Yet one name in that playbill held my attention longer than the others. Shar. Once, I might have read it and moved on. Now, traveling beside Shadowheart, I found that name more difficult to ignore.
No tastes good. Like bear.
Another book, another trace of something wrong. These old school records should have held little more than names and attendance, but some of those names had begun to vanish from the entries. In the margin, someone had written of an investigation into missing children and their families. This was not the first time I had found such a reference here. Once may be an oddity, twice becomes a question. And questions, especially those involving children who have disappeared, are not things I find easy to leave behind.
Oh, for shut mouth, head hurt. Gnome tastes good. Like bear. Dwarf better. Dwarf sweet. Must you? This inane shadow pains me. Oh, for shut mouth. Head hurt. Shut mouth. Head hurt. Gnome tastes good. Like bear. Dwarf better. Dwarf sweet.
Even the smallest discovery required a degree of caution. A beehive promised honey, but I had no desire to learn its defenses by standing beneath it. One arrow provided the answer I needed, or at least failed to provoke the answer I feared. Only then did I approach. Sometimes curiosity requires courage, and sometimes it requires the good sense to stand back first. Oh, the bush yielded only a handful of berries, hardly a feast, but with a little honey, some flour, and a touch of rosewater, they could become small pies for the road. It was an indulgent thought, perhaps, but even adventurers should be allowed to dream of dessert. Ah, another raspberry bush. This one brought back a memory I had not thought of in years. My grandma used to bake small raspberry pies. and she always claimed she could count exactly how many berries she had picked. I never believed her, which is why I spent much of my childhood testing the theory. She never caught me with a berry in my hand, only with red fingers, a red mouth, and a very poor explanation. For a time, I simply stood and listened. The sound of water moving over stone seemed to quiet something within me, if only for a moment. We had spent so long thinking of the thing inside our minds, of what it might become, and of how little time we might have. But here, beside the creek, none of that seemed quite so near. There are forms of healing no cleric can summon. Sometimes, water, wind, and a few quiet moments are enough.
My, what manner of place is this? A path to redemption? Or a road to damnation? Hard to say, for your journey is just beginning.
What would suit the occasion? The words to a lullaby, perhaps. The mouse smiled brightly. It outfoxed the cat. Then down came the claw. And that, love, was that. They do know how to write them in Cormier, don't they? Well met, I am Raphael. Very much at your service.
Pleasure. I'm Rone.
Charmed, I'm sure, in more ways than one. We should have a chat, you and I, but not here. This quaint little scene is decidedly too middle of nowhere for my tastes. Come. There, middle of somewhere.
Hold on. Can you be more specific than somewhere?
The House of Hope, where the tired come to rest and the famished come to feed lavishly. Go on, partake, enjoy your supper. After all, it might just be your last.
Ah, interesting. Are these theatrics leading somewhere?
Are you not entertained? Well, far be it from me to disappoint. What's better than a devil you don't know? A devil you do. Am I a friend? Potentially. An adversary? Conceivably. But a savior? That's for certain.
And what makes you think I need saving?
Come now. Why play hard to get when you're in deep over your tadpoled head? One skull, two tenants, and no solution in sight. I could fix it all like that.
You're mad if you think I'll make a deal with the devil.
And what is madness but a denial of reality? Still, I've a feeling you'll change your mind before it's changed for you. Try to cure yourself, shop around, beg, borrow, and steal. Exhaust every possibility until none are left. And when hope has been whittled down to the very marrow of despair, that's when you'll come knocking on my door. Hope. Such a tease.
I'll have the last laugh in the end.
I've always wondered what a laughing mind flayer sounds like. All those pretty little symptoms, sundering skin, dissolving guts, they haven't manifested yet, have they? One might say you're a paragon of luck. I'll be there when it runs out.
Raphael had made his offer, and I had given him my answer. I would not bargain with him, nor let fear drive me into a promise I could never take back. But I was not traveling alone, and I wanted to know what the others had seen in that encounter. A threat can reveal much about a person, but so can temptation. I wanted to hear Astarion's thoughts, Lae'zel's, and Shadowheart's most of all. Perhaps I hoped they had seen what I had seen, a smile too polished, an offer too generous, and a price that had not yet been spoken.
Bloody hells. Literally. Just when I think I've got a grasp on our dilemma, a devil shows up. No matter. We've dealt with every other oddity thrown at us lately. We can handle this one too. Now, as for this Raphael, he knows our secret. He claims he can help. What do you make of him?
He's a devil. We shouldn't trust him. Simple as that.
No doubts at all. He seemed powerful and very knowledgeable about our problem. Not the worst prospect we've stumbled across. As long as you can look past what he is.
Okay, enough about me. What do you think is best?
I'll tell you in due course. I just wanted to see how close we are in thinking, first of all.
Shadowheart, I'm not going to just change my mind. We can't trust Raphael.
Good. That's what I wanted to hear. I know people who work much like our new acquaintance does. You don't need a scourge or a rack to break people. Fear and self-doubt is sufficient. When actual pain comes, the victim's already done the heavy lifting for their torturer. There were no right answers with that devil. He was toying with his food. Us.
I didn't realize you were so well-versed in mental and emotional torment.
Aren't you glad that I am? It's an effective trick. Watch out for it. And for Raphael.
Shadowheart agreed with me, though not before insisting that I show my own hand first. Only after I had spoken did she reveal hers. When I remarked upon her familiarity with mental and emotional torment, her answer was curiously simple. Watch for the trick, and watch for Raphael. I was not certain whether she was warning me about the devil alone, or about something larger. Fear, hope, desperation. All of them can become levers in the right hands. Perhaps Shadowheart had simply learned to recognize them. Or perhaps she had reason to know them better than she was willing to say.
Now there's a bloody devil trailing after us. Well, this gets better and better. Shop around, he said. He seems sure we won't find anything. And he might be right. We've had no luck so far.
Nah, he's not. We still have options.
Maybe. But all that, take your time, I'll wait nonsense. He's playing with us. Cazador, my old master, liked to toy with people too. Let them think there was hope right until the end. Until he snatched it all away. Creatures like them don't play games. Unless they know they can win.
All right. So what do we do?
We keep hunting for answers. What other choice do we have? This is no ordinary mind flayer parasite. Who tampered with it, and why? What do they have planned for us? And why are we important enough that a devil comes knocking on our door? If we find those answers, we might have a chance.
Astarion's first answer surprised me. For a moment. He spoke as though Raphael's offer might be the only road left to us. But when I refused to accept that, and asked what he truly thought we should do, his answer came quickly. We search for another way. Raphael, he said, reminded him of Cazador. Not in appearance, nor perhaps even in purpose, but in something more familiar to Astarion. The pleasure of toying with people, of letting them believe they have a choice while quietly closing every other door. I had heard fear in Astarion before, though he rarely named it as such. This time, I heard something else beside it. Recognition. And I have learned not to dismiss the instincts of a man who has survived a master like his.
This devil Raphael flaunts his paltry wings as if he wants to impress us. You saw the red dragon slaying his infernal kin above hell's fires, did you not? Next to a dragon, the devil's a gnat. When I am Kithrak, I will take my Queen Vlaakith his head as a trophy.
Oh, Lae'zel, Kithrak. What does that mean?
Githyanki Knights, the riders that chase the Nautiloid. They are the commissars and enforcers of my Queen Vlaakith's will. Vlaakith bestows no greater honor. To wield a Kithrak's silver sword is my destiny. I will earn my Queen's favor, and I will conquer every layer of hell should she command it.
Why were these knights chasing the Mind Flayer ship?
The Geich are my kind's mortal enemy. It is not unusual for the Kithrak to give chase, to penetrate the hells. This is unusual. But I'm not one to question the wisdom of my queen. I can see but to the horizon. Vlaakith's sight pierces the many plains.
Lae'zel's answer was the least surprising of the three. Where Shadowheart offered caution, and Astarion recognized the habits of a predator, Lae'zel spoke of strength. She dreamed of becoming a Kithrak herself, and spoke of the red dragons of her people with such certainty that Raphael, in her estimation, was little more than a gnat beside one. I was not so certain. Raphael had shown us too little of himself for me to measure his true strength, and I had learned that those who rely upon temptation often keep their sharpest teeth hidden. Yet I could not doubt Lae'zel's courage. The thought of pursuing a devil, even into the 9 hells, seemed to trouble her less than the possibility that her own people might fail to do so. She found it strange that a Kithrak would hunt devils into such a realm, but she did not question the wisdom of her queen. In that moment, I was reminded that Lae'zel's confidence did not come from herself alone. She carried the certainty of an entire people with her. As I made my way back toward the cellar, my thoughts returned to Raphael. Shadowheart had warned me of his methods. Astarion had recognized in him the habits of a master who enjoyed the desperation of others. And Lae'zel, true to her nature, believed him a threat that strength alone could overcome. 3 different answers, yet none of them quieted the question that had been growing in my own mind. How did Raphael know so much about the parasites? He had not spoken like a physician confronted by an unfamiliar affliction, nor like a scholar offering a theory. He spoke with certainty, the certainty of someone who knew our condition, knew our fear, and believed that sooner or later we would become desperate enough to seek him out. Perhaps he had simply been watching us. Perhaps devils have ways of learning things that mortals do not. But I could not dismiss another possibility. That Raphael's interest in these parasites was not accidental, and that some connection existed between his purpose and the thing now living behind our eyes. I had no proof, only questions, but I have never believed that questions should be ignored merely because their answers are uncomfortable. And so, with one mystery following me through the village, I found myself walking toward another. The Dark Amethyst was in my possession, and below, the book was waiting.
book is locked tight with no visible keyhole, only an oval recess in the cover's mouth. You try to examine the book, but the longer you stare, the more those piercing amethyst eyes draw you in.
A cursed book? How obvious. Whoever opens it deserves the fate that befalls them.
The book waited where I had left it, and now the Dark Amethyst rested in my hand. For so long, the barrier between us had been simple. I lacked the means to open it. Now, that excuse was gone. Lae'zel's warning came before I could act. She called the tome cursed, and said that anyone foolish enough to open it deserved whatever followed. From Lae'zel, that was not a warning I could easily dismiss. For a moment, I hesitated. Perhaps some doors were sealed for good reason. Perhaps some questions were better left without answers. But I had come too far to pretend that the mystery no longer mattered to me. I served knowledge, and knowledge has never promised safety. The question was no longer whether the book held danger. I was certain that it did. The question was whether I was willing to turn away without ever learning what it held.
The book's pull is irresistible. You feel changed, bettered for having opened it. Suddenly you are capable of anything. Felling mountains, darkening suns, conversing with the dead. Glyphs shift gently before your eyes. Words slip into your mind, onto your lips, forming words you don't understand. And something is trying to reply. The symbols dart beneath your eyes, warping and twisting. Your head throbs, but you almost understand.
I considered my protections carefully. The shield of faith still surrounded me, a defense I was reluctant to surrender when I had no idea what this book might unleash. But the longer I stood before it, the less I believed that steel or armor would be enough. If the danger lay within the mind, the will or the soul itself, then I needed a different kind of protection. And so, with some reluctance, I released the shield and called upon resistance in its place. I could only hope I had chosen the right defense against an enemy I could not yet see.
The world around you is gone. You can only see those glyphs, only hear those voices. You feel claws moving in the shadows. They pull at you, dragging you closer.
The first test had not broken me. Resistance had steadied my will, and for a moment, I allowed myself to believe I had mastered the book. Then I felt something move within the darkness between its words. It was as though unseen claws were reaching from the shadows, drawing me closer, urging me toward another page. I could stop here, force the book closed, walk away, and be grateful for having survived what I had already read. That would have been the wise decision. But wisdom and curiosity are not always friends. I had come this far, survived the first warning, and now the book was asking a question of its own. How much did I truly want to know? I placed my hand upon the next page and turned it.
The glyphs scream, branding your mind with strange runes. You see time rewritten, fate undone, your future thrumming with power. You struggle to cling to scraps of what you know. Powerful necromancy, you're sure. But it darts away, leaving only hell's screams. The book snaps closed. You've seen too much. What profane knowledge is now seared inside of you you should never have known.
The final page resisted me with a force greater than anything that had come before. For one terrible moment, I felt my will begin to give way. The words burned through my thoughts. Time seemed to bend around them, and I saw things I could neither hold nor fully understand. Yet some last thread of resistance remained. Thin, fragile, almost gone, but it held. I read on. The knowledge before me was necromantic. Of that I was certain. But each time I reached for its meaning, it seemed to move away from me, leaving only fragments, screams, and the terrible sense that I had seen something no mortal mind was meant to carry. Then the book slammed shut, and for a long moment, I did nothing. There was no pain, no curse I could feel, no voice whispering from the darkness. But I knew something had changed. I had opened the book seeking answers. Instead, I had been left with more questions than before. What had I seen? What had I learned? And most troubling of all, what had the book left behind in me? The village had given up many of its secrets, but I was beginning to understand that some secrets do not end when they are discovered. Some follow you. And as I stood there with the closed tome in my hands, one thought would not leave me. I had been curious enough to open the book. Now I had to live with whatever had answered